First Officer's Log, July 5th, 2016. Hey everyone, so unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know by now that Samurai Jack is coming back. We got the news maybe last year. It's been a little while since we had the news that Samurai Jack was officially coming back on Adult Swim, and we got a little bit of news here and there. It was very sporadic. We still know very little about it. And I wanted to do a log or a video on this for a while now. It's just a matter of, like, we don't really know anything. And we just recently, just the other day, got a behind-the-scenes featurette that's about 7 or 8 minutes long that has interviews with the returning voice cast and Genndy Tartakovsky and all that stuff. And so there's a little bit more to talk about here, and I just wanted to go ahead and mention some of this stuff because I think it's interesting. Now, Samurai Jack is, I think, one of the greatest television programs of all time, one of the greatest stories of all time. I was in a conversation with Alex, Superior Enthusiast, almost a few years ago now, I guess at this point, and he made the case to me that the way Samurai Jack is crafted, the way the story, the way how simplistic the story is of Jack in a quest to get back to the past in a future ruled by Aku, how simple the story structure is, makes it the most malleable and perfect story imaginable. And I think he's right. I think Samurai Jack is one of those things that has limitless potential. You can do anything with Samurai Jack. And there's just so much brilliance in that show that captures why it's such a malleable story, where you've got like noir episodes, you've got mafia episodes, you've got westerns, you've got train heists, you've got sci-fi horror tales, you've got like standard action, revenge thrillers. There's so much diverse storytelling in Samurai Jack in its 4 seasons already that it gives you this sense of never really being tired of the show. You can binge Samurai Jack in a way you can't really binge other shows from around the late 90s, early 2000s, because for some shows it's about a formula. Some shows have the exact same premise episode to episode, like MacGyver, like Quantum Leap, that kind of thing, where if you sit down and try to watch like a marathon of it, it gets kind of old pretty fast. Even the Incredible Hulk TV show, especially that, actually. It gets boring really fast if you try to binge it. Samurai Jack doesn't have that. Every episode is going to open with Jack trying to find a way to get back to the past, and you can binge that all day long because every episode is something different, something unique, something interesting in its own right. And so the idea of bringing Samurai Jack back is something that I'm fully supportive of. I love that. I love bringing that character back. The way everyone's talking about it, the way everyone on the internet's talking about it versus the way Genndy Tartakovsky's talking about it, I think there's a distinction there, and I want to address that for a second, because people are talking as if and are acting as if Samurai Jack is back to stay forever. People are acting like Samurai Jack is back and it's gonna get like another 4 seasons or something, and I don't know if those people read any of the information we've gotten so far, because Genndy Tartakovsky and the official announcement that told us Samurai Jack was coming back months and months and months ago said very clearly that this show is coming back to end Jack's story. The show had, I want to say, a 3-part opening, which was Aku coming back to life, attacking Jack's father, Jack being trained, Jack growing up and fighting Aku. In the middle of the fight, he gets sent to the future. And we have all those journeys and everything in the middle, and then either the ending or near the ending, we get a movie which is like about the size of 3 episodes, which is the origin story of where did Aku come from, how did he first land on Earth, and how did Jack's father defeat him. And the way Tartakovsky's pitching this is that it's the end of that, so you can watch it as a movie, a 3-episode movie, which is the birth of Aku, a 3-episode movie that is Jack growing up and being trapped in the future, and then a arc that tells you how Jack's story finally ends. So season 5 of the show is going to be very much a character arc for Jack all the way through, and it's going to end the series. And I love that. I think that's exactly what they should do. I'm really excited for that. I don't know if the Samurai Jack comics are still going. I was reading those when they first came out, and I liked them okay for a while, and then they got kind of tedious. It was written by Jim Zub. Jim Zub's kind of hit and miss. It got kind of tedious, and so I dropped off. And then I was talking to Eric at one point, and he told me that the final arc of the comic was, there's an episode of Samurai Jack where he goes to find this time portal, and he finds it, and it's being guarded by this big blue dude that he fights for most of the episode, and then Jack loses. And then at the end of the fight, Jack gets put back somewhere safe, and the guy looks at the time portal and he says, "It's not your time yet." And then in the portal, you see like an older, bearded Jack that has gone back and conquered Aku. And apparently, the final story arc Jim Zub wrote for the comic is that story, which is awesome. And I need to go back and read that, because if that's the case, it sounds amazing. And so I don't know if, because in the promo image we got, Jack does have a beard, a very long beard, and Tartakovsky makes it a point to say, yeah, he looks different, he's older in this, that it has been like 12 years since this journey has ended. And so I don't know if it's the story of that Jack, or if it's going to connect to that episode at all. He also makes it a very fine point to say that the final episode, Jack and the Baby, which is just kind of it's not really a great episode. It's a comedy. It's a 60s comedy kind of episode. It has no connection to that final episode. And I get the sense that he's saying that for people that aren't used to Samurai Jack. Because, I mean, any Samurai Jack fan no one was assuming that Season 5 was going to follow directly off the heels of Jack just saving this baby. No one thought that. I don't know why he needs to make that clear, but he is. But I think he is also hammering home the point that Jack's in a different place right now. That Jack was on this quest, this unwavering quest to stay noble and find a way back to the past. And it's been so long, Jack has kind of become disenfranchised with that quest. And so it's going to be a journey from this for this final Season 5 to bring him to a different place and to give him a stronger character arc and to kind of wrap up his story. And so that's a very different format than what Samurai Jack traditionally is, which is just one-and-done episodes. Which is cool. I'm kind of fine with that. They talk about how the art style is trying as hard as possible to stay the same, but because technology has changed and evolved and such, there's a lot of stuff with digital painting and stuff like that makes the job easier and more difficult, so they have to kind of like, it's a very tricky process. But some of the character designs we saw in the behind-the-scenes featurette, some of the backgrounds and stuff, some of the concept art, it looks great, looks just like Samurai Jack. It's on Adult Swim now, so if they want nudity, they want a curse, they want blood, most of this is fair game. So this is the Joss Whedon turning Buffy into a comic problem. This is the part of your charm was the restraint. Now that you have carte blanche, what are you going to do with that? And do you really need it? The Batman had the same problem of after the Bat embargo was slowly beginning to lift, it just kind of became animated series and then Brave and the Bold and Justice League kind of thing. Buffy Season 8 is just, it's not really Buffy. Angel After the Fall is not really Angel, which is part of the reason I haven't kept going with those comics. Although I'm told they get better, and Joss Whedon has admitted that was a problem. So Samurai Jack now has the ability to be more crude in places, the ability to be more bloody, the ability to be more violent, and I don't quite know how I feel about that, because I have no aversion to violence, I have no aversion to cursing, I don't really care. My issue just is, Samurai Jack's aesthetic is very specific. Jack slicing off the head of a robot and seeing the oil fly up and cover him and stuff, there's a very different theme and connotation to what that symbolizes, as opposed to him cutting a guy's head off and having blood come all over the place. There's a very different commentary being made about this type of future and about types of people and about the difference between man and machine and stuff when Jack is battling robots. And I don't want that to alter too much, because now we can have blood. And there is blood scattered over Jack on the promo image, which is fine. It's just, it has to be used sparingly. And so I want to make sure it's not turning into too much of a different thing. it's the same thing as, again, with Joss Whedon, it's the same thing as what he says with Firefly and the Monkey's Paw, where it's been so long that now that they have the opportunity to do it again, is it going to be worse? It's the thing that you've always wanted, but it's the thing you've always wanted really worth getting in the end. Joss Whedon, I think at this point, is pretty firmly set that he's not going to bring Firefly back. There was great movement for that for a long time. People love it. It deserved a second season. I don't think Joss Whedon, I think he's very clear about the fact that he doesn't want to do it. Because there was a particular mindset he was in with that show, and it's been so long now that if he ever brought it back, it might not be the same thing, and it'd be deformed. It wouldn't be what he wanted it to be. It would be in a different sort of. It would be in a different sort of zeitgeist than the original Firefly was. And I think Samurai Jack sort of has the same thing, where there is a little bit of like, everyone was expecting this for the longest time. Now that you've got it, what are you going to do with that? Samurai Jack's brilliance didn't rely on finding a niche audience. It relied on them doing something that was innovative and creative and people flocking to it. And the fan base was something that grew along with it and after it. And so all of these people that now go around professing to know what Samurai Jack is, how are they going to alter the influence on what Samurai Jack, how Samurai Jack returns? And so that's going to be a little dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think that's why it is smart to not come back as a full series, to come back as just season 5 ending the show. I really think that it would have been a bad move to try and like recapture Samurai Jack constantly. It's good for comics, it's good for animation, it's good for movies and such, but it's the kind of thing where like you don't want to get stale with this kind of thing. And you don't want to be so internalized and analyzing your own success so much that you're just kind of regurgitating things, or you're inverting things that don't really need inverting. And I think Tarkovsky is a good enough creator to where he won't do that, but I think it is something that is a legitimate concern that is worth pointing out. The big elephant in the room, as far as voice cast goes, is Mako, who died in 2006. Mako is also... There's a character in Legend of Korra named Mako who is named after Mako because he was the voice of Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender up to 2006, and then he died, and then a guy named Greg Baldwin took over for him. So Mako was the voice of Aku. And Aku had one of the most distinctive, funnest, best voices in all of animation. I love the voice of Aku. Everyone does. And you can't mess with that. You really can't. Because if you change his voice, he's a different character. So much of who that character is comes from his voice. And with Mako gone, there was every chance in the world that we'd bring Samurai Jack back and we wouldn't do much with Aku. But because this is an ending, you can't do that. You have to bring Aku back in. And you also don't want someone to come in if you're a voice actor, or if you're an actor, if someone tells you to just copy someone else's performance, it's sort of disrespectful to you and what you want to bring to a part. But Tarkovsky does talk about this, and he says that at the end of the day, we just need a Mako impersonation. That's the only way this is going to work. And because this is not a long-running project, that it is only just going to be one season, I think that's fine. I think that's totally fair, and I think it's worth preserving his legacy in that character as opposed to trying to selfishly leave your stamp on a role that's defined by another person like that. It's a very different thing, right? Like, it's a very different thing here than it is somewhere else. Like, other voice actors don't need to mimic Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill. They can leave their own voice print. But this is so much of the voice... It's like Mel Blanc and Looney Tunes, where, like, the characters are built, and their personalities are defined, and they're written because of how they are voiced. And so you just kind of have to preserve that. There's no way around it. So I don't know who they're getting to replace the voice of Aku. It might be Greg Baldwin who took over for him as Iroh. It might not be, because you can mimic one voice doesn't mean you can necessarily mimic another. I don't know who else I'd recommend. Maybe Mark Hamill. Maybe Mark Hamill could do an Aku voice. I know they have someone lined up. I don't actually know who it is, though. So whoever it is, I hope they just sound close enough to Mako. So I'm really excited for this. I can't wait to see what it's like. When it starts airing, I will probably end up doing reviews for it. Depending on the first episode. If the first episode is something I can talk about in isolation, I'll probably end up doing reviews for it as it airs. But if it turns out to be a thing that I need to watch all of it and then review it at the end, I'll review it at the end. Because I love Samurai Jack. I love everything about Samurai Jack. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm really hopeful that we kind of like catch lightning in a bottle twice with what's being done with this character and this particular story. So I hope we get more information soon, maybe some kind of teaser trailer, something more than just the promo image and some of the interviews. I'm really excited for this. Let me know what you think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree with anything I said. What are you looking forward to most? What do you want to see in Season 5? Until then, I'll see you next time.